Jeopardy's Ken Jennings has daily doubled down on his infamous NSFW answer from when he was a contestant in a new TikTok video. The host stood firm in his stance that he got shafted when he hilariously guessed "ho" and was deemed incorrect 18 years ago. In a new TikTok clip from a recent episode of Jeopardy, Ken, 48, took to the audience for questions. Someone had asked about perhaps his most famous, or infamous, moment when he won all his money back in the day. He said, "Okay, so there's like an 18-year-old clip of me on Jeopardy! Circulating on TikTok where there's a clue about an immoral pleasure seeker that has the same name as a long-handled garden instrument. And the players are supposed to say, 'What is a rake?' And I say, 'What is a hoe?'" Ken added on the clip being dug up and getting new life, and TikTok has apparently just discovered this and is delighted. An audience member yelled out, "Why didn't you get it right?" "I was shafted." Ken replied, "Yeah, why didn't I get it right? I think the idea is the clue says it's an immoral pleasure seeker, and we don't want to characterize all hoes that way. Rakes, apparently, were okay with that aspersion on their character." The audience went wild and Ken joked he felt he still owed the money he lost from getting the clue wrong. "I still think I was shafted, quite frankly. I think I'm owed $200, and maybe the writers should get a pool together." Justice for Ken. Fans loved the no-holds-barred statement and the tides have turned on TikTok where many fans think Ken actually was right with ho. One commented, "Justice for Ken Jennings. Pay that man. Pay that man his money." Another riled-up viewer wrote. A third penned, "I did not have Ken Jennings saying shafted on my 2022 bingo card." And a fourth claimed, technically would he be owed $400 since they take away money for a wrong answer? Others revealed they related to Ken even at the time. "I remember shouting the same answer at the TV when it aired, and my whole family burst out laughing." Another person wrote, "The guy from Utah is now the Jeopardy guy. What is a hoe?" Well into his 74-game run resulting in $2.5 million in 2004, still the longest streak ever, the then 30-year-old software engineer buzzed in on the category Tool Time. The clue read, "This tool is a long-handled gardening tool that can also mean an immoral pleasure seeker. What is a hoe?" Ken responded with a giant smirk on his face, as gasps and uproarious laughter from the audience ensued. Host Alex replied in shock, "Whoa. Whoa. Whoa. They teach you that in school in Utah?" The clue was, of course, looking for rake, which Ken joked he's salty, all these years later, was still the only answer acceptable, apparently not the only one. The response was so shocking that the clip on YouTube has scored 1.2 million plus views and it's become known as one of Jeopardy's most classic moments. Over the summer, Ken and actress mayim Bialik were officially announced as the permanent replacements for the late, great Alex, who had hosted since 1984. Alex tragically passed away from pancreatic cancer at age 80 in 2020, leaving huge shoes to fill. During a recent taping of a Jeopardy! Special celebrating its most iconic champions, Ken Jennings stunned the live studio audience and longtime fans by making an unusually candid, and surprisingly humorous, confession. While hosting the high-stakes tournament, Jennings paused mid-show to reference a moment from his own legendary run as a contestant nearly 2 decades ago. The room fell silent as the game show icon took a moment to reflect on what he jokingly called "my greatest shame. And the filthiest answer that ever cost me $200. I'm going to say this once," Jennings began, half laughing, half groaning. "There's a little-known moment from my original 2004 streak that I still, honestly, harbor resentment about. One clue, one word, and a very wrong assumption." The audience tensed. The returning champions on stage gave amused glances. Then, Ken spilled it. The clue was, "This term for a gardening tool is also a disparaging term for a woman," Jennings said, raising his eyebrows. Now, I knew what they wanted. But in that split second, I said, "What is a hoe?" Laughter erupted. Groans followed. "I mean, come on," Ken continued, trying to defend himself through the chuckles. "I wasn't wrong. But Jeopardy! In all its G-rated glory, wasn't about to give me credit for that." The room roared again, but the now legendary game show host waved his hand, signaling that he had more to say. "That moment haunts me," he added dramatically. "It's been 20 years, and I've gone from a contestant to your host, but I still haven't lived it down. Sometimes fans ask me to autograph pictures of that exact moment. I get tagged in memes. I've seen coffee mugs, t-shirts, there's even a novelty song about it on TikTok." Then, his tone softened slightly. "But it reminds me of what this show is all about. It's fast, it's brilliant, and sometimes, It's hilariously human. The viral moment that refuses to die. Ken Jennings' now infamous Ho answer has lived in the annals of Jeopardy! Lore since it aired. The correct response, as most fans now know, was "What is a rake?" A term that applies both to the gardening tool and to a charming but untrustworthy man. Jennings' response, though technically valid in its own right, fell outside the bounds of what the writers had intended. In the years since, fans have brought the moment up repeatedly. Social media accounts dedicated to Jeopardy! Trivia often revisit the clip, and late-night shows have ribbed Ken about it more than once. But until now, Jennings had only occasionally acknowledged the moment with mild embarrassment and a sheepish smile. This on-stage declaration marked the first time he leaned fully into it, turning a moment of personal cringe into comedy gold. And true to his dry sense of humor, Jennings wasn't done. "People think being a host means you've got all the answers," he said, returning to the podium. "But sometimes, we hosts are just contestants who got lucky. Or unlucky, depending on what gardening tool pops into our heads." Contestants react, and one fires back. Among the 3 returning Jeopardy! Champions competing on stage during the taping, James Holzhauer couldn't resist jumping in. "Ken," he quipped, "I'm just glad you didn't say 'what is a hoe?' again when you introduced me tonight." Jennings grinned. "Don't tempt me, James." Amy Schneider laughed, offering a softer perspective. "Honestly, it's kind of iconic. It made people remember that even the smartest people can have slip-ups." Matt Amodio added, "I mean, if that's the biggest regret of your record-setting streak, you're doing just fine." Behind the scenes, did it almost get him disqualified? While the moment didn't actually result in any punishment, Jeopardy! Simply ruled the response incorrect and moved on. It apparently sparked a bit of chaos behind the scenes at the time. A former Jeopardy! Stage manager, who requested anonymity, recently shared that producers had a brief conversation about whether the answer crossed the line. "It wasn't vulgar per se," the source said, "but there were concerns about airing it. It was a daytime show. Ultimately, they bleeped nothing and let it ride." According to that same source, Jennings was incredibly apologetic backstage. He kept saying, "I swear I was thinking about tools." The crew member recalled. "But we all had a good laugh. It was harmless, and it showed his quick thinking, even if it was a little too quick." Ken's message to the fans, "Own your cringe." After the show, Jennings shared a heartfelt message via Instagram, posting a behind-the-scenes photo of himself in front of the Jeopardy! Board with the caption, "Still haunted by one gardening tool. Let this be a reminder, we all have our cringe moments. Embrace them. Laugh. And maybe trademark them. #Ho happens." The post immediately blew up, with thousands of fans commenting things like "Justice for Ho" and "You were robbed." One fan even photoshopped Ken into a parody album cover titled "Tools of Trivia, The Ken Jennings Files." It's safe to say that this moment, long buried in Jeopardy! Archives, has been reborn thanks to Jennings' willingness to laugh at himself. A final thought, from the host himself. As the taping concluded and the lights dimmed, Jennings offered one last remark, unprompted, as he stepped away from the podium. "I might not have been right that day," he said, "but I was definitely memorable. And hey, if my worst moment is being too enthusiastic about gardening, I'll take it." With a wink and a wave, Ken Jennings left the stage, not just as a brilliant quizmaster, but as the most relatable contestant Jeopardy! Ever had.